Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Our goal here is always to cut through all the noise, give you that shortcut to being really well informed, and hopefully spark a few aha moments. Today, we're diving into something, it's a bit different, maybe even for us. It's this fantastic thought experiment.
Yeah, really interesting.
It comes straight from our source material. We're pulling from excerpts from Ronaldo, the crossover phenom, and the core question, the one that really jumped out at us, is this. What if Cristiano Ronaldo was a basketballer?
Right. And that's just one of those questions, isn't it? It immediately opens up, a dozen different ways to think about it. Because you start considering not just, the obvious athleticism, but his drive, that incredible competitiveness, his work ethic. This isn't really about comparing stats line by line. It's more about dissecting the essence of what makes someone like him a phenom and then trying to picture that on a totally different court.
Exactly. It's like, what are those universal traits of greatness? What still shines through when you completely change the game? So, okay, let's do it. Let's take Ronaldo, just as he's described in the book, and imagine him stepping onto a basketball court. What's the very first attribute you think of? The thing that would immediately make him, a force?
Oh, without a doubt. For me, it's just going to be his vertical leap, his aerial ability. The excerpts mention it again and again, how he just hangs in the air for headers, the sheer power in his legs. You put that on a basketball court, that translates instantly. Elite rebounder, maybe even a really formidable shot blocker, especially coming from a wing position. The book even talks about his almost like supernatural timing on his jumps. Imagine applying that to boxing out or contesting shots.
That's a really huge point. So you're talking about a player who, maybe isn't 7 feet tall, but plays way bigger just because of that hang time. What about his speed then and his agility? We all know him in football for those explosive runs, the quick cuts.
Yeah, his acceleration, that first step, it'd be a nightmare for defenders in basketball. Ronaldo.
The crossover phenom really goes into detail about his training, how it was so meticulous, focused on maximizing that explosive power. So in basketball, I see him as an elite off-ball cutter. Forget being the main guy bringing the ball up. Think of him making these incredibly quick, decisive cuts to the basket, using those bursts for easy layups, or just pulling defenders away to create space. His spatial awareness, which is obviously honed on the pitch, would mean he just knows when and where to make those cuts.
Okay, so a slasher, a cutter, definitely an aerial threat. But what about his shooting? The long-range power and precision he's famous for with a football. How does that translate? Because let's be honest, a basketball jump shot needs a totally different kind of touch. That's where it gets really interesting, I think. The raw power, the accuracy he generates, kicking a ball, sure, some of that drive might transfer. But the finesse, the actual mechanics of a jump shot, very different. However, the book talks so much about his dedication, his obsession, really, with practice, with getting things perfect. If Ronaldo decided he was playing basketball, you just know he'd be in the gym for countless hours perfecting that stroke. So I think we'd probably see him develop into a pretty formidable catch-and-shoot player. Maybe not creating his own shot off the dribble constantly, but definitely someone who could hit contested threes. Why? Because of that vertical and high release point. And his free throws, I bet anything they'd be elite, purely because of that focus on repetition, on precision.
Yeah, this really brings us to the mindset, doesn't it? That sheer will to win, the self-belief, that incredible competitive fire that comes through so strongly in the excerpts, that's going to be universal.
Absolutely. That's maybe the most transferable asset of all.
Yeah.
The book paints this really clear picture, doesn't it? A guy who demands perfection from himself, from everyone around him, thrives under pressure, that mentality, that just relentless desire to be the absolute best, that makes him a leader. Maybe not always the most vocal leader, but the kind who inspires just by sheer effort and this unshakable belief that they're going to win. You can absolutely picture him demanding the ball for the last shot. He has that, call it champion's arrogance, that belief in himself.
Right. But let's also look at the flip side. I mean, every player faces challenges, right? Even with all these gifts, what do you think would be his biggest hurdle if he actually made this switch to basketball?
That's a good question. Possibly his size, maybe. I mean, he's incredibly athletic, obviously, but he's not built like a typical NBA power forward or center. He'd likely be a wing player and guarding bigger, stronger guys night after night, or navigating complex defensive schemes, all the screening in basketball. That's a completely new world. And also the team dynamic in basketball, it's different. That constant flow, the reliance on quick passes, setting up teammates in tight spaces. It's not quite like football where one player can sometimes just take over a whole sequence. Now, he's a great passer in football, don't get me wrong, but adapting that specific vision to basketball's court geometry, the pace, that would be a real learning curve. He'd need to, really trust his teammates implicitly. And the book does sometimes hit that, given his own drive, maybe trusting others to finish the job wasn't always the strongest suit.
So what we're painting is this picture of a phenomenal athlete, absolutely. Champion's mind, a potential game changer who might even force coaches to, I don't know, rethink traditional roles a bit. It really is a compelling thought. And just like that, well, that was our mission for today, exploring this really compelling what if.
It's a fantastic example, isn't it? How just asking a well-crafted question, even if it's hypothetical, can unlock some pretty unexpected insights into what makes certain athletes just elite, regardless of the sport they play.
Yeah, and if you zoom out a bit, it forces you to consider what are those universal traits? What really defines athletic greatness beyond just the skills for one particular sport? It really highlights how maybe Ronaldo's relentless work ethic, his competitive drive, that sheer physical dedication, maybe those are his most transferable skills. It wouldn't matter if it was a football or basketball. It kind of prompts you, the listener, to think about how excellence in one area often shares these really fundamental principles with excellence somewhere else entirely, even if the details look different. Precisely. So keep asking those questions, keep exploring those connections, and we'll be right back here with another deep dive for you very